The chamber was alive with sound, a chorus of voices, each distinctly alien, echoing across the massive hall. Species from every corner of known space filled the seats, their eyes fixed on the central podium where Ambassador Keth Ra of the Xerian Coalition stood. His blue-scaled form towered over most of the other delegates, each forearm gesturing dramatically as he spoke. There was an undeniable authority in his presence, one born of a warrior race that had conquered 17 star systems. Honored members of the Council, Keth Ra's words clicked and hissed through his translator, smoothing into the galactic standard that every species could understand. We can no longer ignore the human problem. The statement hung in the air, charged with tension. One species cannot claim such vast territories and deny access to entire sectors of space. Their defense zones stretch across systems rich in rare minerals, vital hyperspace routes that could benefit all civilized species. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Curillian delegate nodded solemnly, while smaller species voiced their support in excited, high-pitched tones. Observing silently, Captain Jake Morrison of the human delegation felt the familiar weight of scrutiny. His face, weathered and calm, betrayed nothing. Alien delegates debated the need to open dialogue with humanity, calling the human approach aggressive and unreasonable. Morrison had anticipated this moment. Intelligence reports had hinted at growing resentment among several interstellar coalitions regarding the boundaries humans maintained in space. But what these aliens could not understand, and perhaps would never understand, was that humanity's borders were not about resources, trade, or politics. They existed because survival itself demanded it. A delegate from the hegemony of worlds spoke rapidly through her translator. The humans patrol their borders with military vessels. They have established warning beacons throughout their territory, threatening lethal force against any vessel that crosses without permission. This is not the behavior of a peaceful species seeking galactic cooperation. Voices joined the chorus, trade routes, mining rights, asteroid fields, all blocked by humans. Even the older, historically patient species whispered in agreement. Humanity, they said, had become too isolated. Too protective. Morrison watched quietly, unbothered. 30 years in deep space had taught him patience. His uniform bore only the simple insignia of the human diplomatic corps, but his eyes held the sharp awareness of a man who had served in far darker capacities. He had requested permission to speak. He had known that, eventually, someone would challenge humanity's policies. Then came a sound that cut through the growing clamor, deliberate, slow, and commanding. Elder Vex Prime of the Karani rose from his section. Age had bent his frame, but not his authority. Silence fell immediately. The Karani were ancient, among the oldest spacefaring races in the galaxy. Their words carried the weight of civilizations witnessed rising and falling. You speak of human aggression as if it were new, Vex Prime began, his voice almost a whisper, yet filling the chamber with an eerie resonance. You complain of their territorial nature as though it were unreasonable. But how many of you have studied human history? How many understand what kind of species you are dealing with? His three eyes scanned the room, one by one, focusing on each delegation. Even the proud Superians seemed to shrink under his gaze. The humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them every single day. Ice ages, plagues, global wars, events that would have annihilated weaker species, they survived them all. And through it, they not only endured but grew stronger. Ambassador Keth Ra shifted, uncomfortable, but maintained his posture. With respect, Elder, we are not debating history. We are discussing present-day policy, the policies that affect all council members. Human isolation serves no one but themselves. Vex Prime's gaze sharpened. You believe it's selfishness. You think their warnings are empty threats, meant to guard resources they hoard. You are wrong. Wrong on both counts. The elder moved closer, each word measured, deliberate. I have lived over 800 of your standard years. I have witnessed the rise of the Galactic Council, first contact with 47 species, the construction of trade networks, and the birth of interstellar law. And in all that time, one truth has become clear: there are two kinds of species in this galaxy. Those who respect human boundaries, and those who no longer exist. The chamber erupted in shock. Delegates shouted for clarification, some accused the elder of fear-mongering. Keth Ross' laughter clicked mechanically through the translator. Surely, Elder, you do not expect us to believe humans have eliminated entire species over imaginary borders? Not imaginary, Vex Prime replied, calm, precise. Not eliminated, but lessons have been taught. The hegemony remembers the Dark Star Collective. The mining guild whispers of the Void Runners. These were not wars. They were demonstrations. Morrison finally rose, drawing every eye. Humans were not physically imposing next to towering aliens, but there was something in his presence, controlled, commanding, that demanded attention. Honored Council, he said, voice steady, resonant. Elder Vex Prime speaks truth, though not the full truth. We humans patrol our borders. We respond to intrusions with lethal force. But we do not do this to protect territory. We do it to protect you. The chamber went silent. Keth Ross' scales darkened with anger, but Morrison did not flinch. I suggest nothing. I state facts. Human space is dangerous, not because of what we do, but because of what we have become to survive there. He stepped forward, pacing slowly, hands clasped behind his back. You speak of resources, trade routes, greed. You are mistaken. Human space contains things that terrify most civilized species. Technologies and tactics that function best unseen. Weapons that are optimized when there are no witnesses. Every colony is a fortress. Every trade route a potential battlefield. Every civilian vessel armed to council standards. This is not aggression. This is evolution. Morrison paused, letting the weight of the words settle. Elder Vex Prime is correct about one thing. There are two types of species in this galaxy. Which one you become, is your choice. As Morrison returned to his seat, the chamber erupted in debate, voices clashing, plans forming, alarms raised. Humanity's boundaries were clear. Their policies transparent. Their capability undeniable. The Council would soon learn that the difference between a threat and a promise was something the humans had mastered long ago. Outside the Council chamber, the galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. The hum of hyperlane traffic carried over hundreds of light-years, but there was an undercurrent of unease, a subtle tension that only species who had survived countless wars could feel. On the bridge of the human flagship Black Armada, Captain Morrison watched the displays flicker with data. The Zaffron Fleet, a coalition of multiple species under a single banner, had begun to move. Not openly hostile, yet. They were probing. Testing boundaries. Calculating whether humanity would respond or remain passive. Morrison's eyes narrowed. Status report, he said. Lieutenant Hannah Lee, the tactical officer, tapped rapidly across her console. Sensors confirm. 27 capital ships are moving along the Alpha Core hyperlane, preliminary scans indicate heavy shielding, advanced energy signatures. They've opened communication channels, but no direct messages yet. Of course not, Morrison murmured. They want to see if we panic. A faint smile crossed his face. They'll learn quickly. Signal the fleet. Initiate silent formation protocol. Hannah raised an eyebrow. Silent. They'll notice ships massing at warp points. You're suggesting, what, exactly? Morrison didn't answer immediately. He allowed the silence to stretch. In this stillness, each officer felt the weight of the moment. Humanity's strategy was never about immediate engagement. It was about perception, about control, about making the enemy doubt their assumptions. Deploy the shadow nodes, Morrison finally said. Keep everything off the main sensor grids. Let them think they're scanning empty space. Let them think they have the advantage. By the time the Zafran fleet reached the Alpha Core hyperlane, human vessels were already positioned. Not in formation, not in open fleets, but in something far more subtle, every jump point concealed, every warp gate watched, every potential engagement zone prepared for instantaneous response. To the enemy's sensors, it appeared as if human space were sparsely defended. Yet this illusion was lethal. The first Zafran vessel entered a contested sector, its long-range scanners sweeping across the seemingly empty void. Data fed back to their command bridge, misaligned and confusing. "Captain," the Zafran commander hissed, "our readings, they show only empty space. Yet energy fluctuations, thermal anomalies, are inconsistent with a void. It's deceptive." Meanwhile, Morrison stood quietly, observing multiple feeds. "They've entered the trap," he said, almost to himself. "Now, we begin." In seconds, energy pulses lit up the void. Cloaked human destroyers accelerated from hidden positions, firing precision volleys that disabled engines without destroying hulls. The Zafran ships were stunned, unable to locate the attackers. The Black Armada did not fire a single main cannon, humans preferred subtlety. Damage, but minimal casualties. Psychological warfare, perfected. "Adjust the interference fields," Morrison ordered. "Make them doubt their sensors. Let them think human numbers are greater than they are." By now, every vessel in the fleet had moved according to hidden grids only Morrison and his senior officers could visualize. The Zafrans, skilled and numerous, began to realize the pattern too late. Their probes hit layers of decoy drones, false readings, and weaponized illusions. Every engagement created hesitation. Every hesitation multiplied uncertainty. Back at the Galactic Council, news feeds from the Edge systems began to arrive. Alien delegates whispered among themselves. Humanity had not reacted overtly, but the reports were unmistakable. Intruders found space empty, yet casualties mounted. Ships were being disabled, trapped, or forced to retreat with no clear enemy ever seen. Elder Vex Prime leaned back in his chair, his three eyes narrowing. "Morrison is not attacking," he observed, almost to himself. "He is teaching." "Teaching what?" asked a younger delegate, unsure. "The lesson of perception," Vex Prime replied. "The humans do not need to annihilate to win. They make you question what is real, what is safe, and what is inevitable. This is control beyond brute force." On board the Black Armada, Morrison continued to issue calm, precise orders. Civilian ships were rerouted silently, mining colonies received automated protection directives. Communications with allied species remained coded and hidden. Humanity was operating as a single organism, fluid, adaptive, invisible yet omnipresent. The Zafran fleet commander, frustrated and increasingly paranoid, convened his war council. "They are ghosts. Every jump, every scan, leads nowhere. Yet we are losing ships. It is impossible." "Impossible," Morrison murmured, listening in through a captured transmission. "No, not impossible. Predictable. They underestimate us. They always underestimate us." Hours passed. The Zafran fleet, once confident, became cautious. They began to hesitate at each jump point, double-checking every sensor reading, delaying orders, second-guessing tactics. This hesitation was the real victory. Humanity had not fired enough to destroy an entire fleet, but the psychological impact had already crippled their cohesion. By the time the first group of Zafran vessels attempted a coordinated strike on a human colony, they found themselves trapped by defensive grids, unable to retreat without sustaining damage. Every maneuver they made had been anticipated. Every escape route accounted for. Hannah Lee, monitoring the engagement, noted the efficiency. "Captain, they'll pull back. Their morale is breaking." Morrison nodded, eyes fixed on the starfield. "They'll think twice before testing our borders again. And they'll tell others what happened here. That is how influence spreads. Not by destruction alone, but by reputation, by the inevitability of human response. By nightfall, human ships had returned to positions that left the illusion intact, minimal presence, silent patrols, and every sector seemingly calm. Yet the Zafrans were retreating, cautious, calculating. Reports of lost vessels, misread sensors, and inexplicable ambushes circulated through their command. At the Galactic Council, murmurs spread like wildfire. Humanity had acted, but without aggression, without declaration. They had demonstrated power, efficiency, and control. Fear and respect blended in ways the galaxy had rarely seen. Vex Prime spoke once more. This is only the beginning. Humanity will expand, and they will do so on terms of precision and patience. Other species can debate policies, but they will learn, survival is not measured in numbers, but in foresight. Morrison, alone in the bridge's observation deck, watched the fading Zafran fleet lights. The stars were calm, but he knew the galaxy would never see calm again, not truly. Humanity had chosen silence over noise, strategy over chaos. And the echoes of this encounter would ripple far beyond any council debate. He turned back to his officers. Prepare the next phase. They will test us again. Always. And we will be ready. The Black Armada drifted silently through the void, a ghost among the stars, its presence invisible yet undeniable. Humanity's counterattack was complete, not in destruction, but in influence. And in a galaxy that underestimated the human species, influence was more powerful than any weapon. Weeks had passed since the Zafran fleet's retreat. The galaxy, though outwardly calm, was buzzing with whispers, rumors, and unspoken fear. Word of the humans' silent dominance spread faster than any hyperlane could carry a fleet. To most species, it seemed impossible that a single star system could command such influence, yet every report confirmed it. Every ambush, every hidden maneuver, every subtle manipulation had been catalogued and retold. At the Galactic Council, debate raged. Delegates argued strategy, blamed themselves, and speculated endlessly. Some insisted on open confrontation, others recommended cautious diplomacy. None fully understood humanity, not because humans were weak, but because they had mastered a subtle, almost alien form of power, the ability to shape perception itself. Meanwhile, deep in the void, the humans did not celebrate. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Black Armada, staring into the endless night. Sensors flickered, analyzing distant systems, faint signals, and unknown phenomena. Humanity had demonstrated its strength, but Morrison knew the galaxy was only the first layer of the challenge. Lieutenant Hannah Lee approached, her voice soft but steady. Captain, the Zafran fleet isn't regrouping, they're cautious. But we're detecting something else, anomalous readings. Not ships, not signals, not even conventional matter. Something older. Larger. And moving. Morrison's expression hardened. Harari. Hannah nodded. Uncertain. But the pattern matches their observational markers. They're not aggressive, yet. But they're watching, and, they seem aware of us. More than just aware. Concerned. The Harari had always been a neutral presence in galactic affairs. Ancient observers, their technology and intellect far beyond even the combined fleets of the Council, they rarely intervened directly. But when they did, it meant the balance of the galaxy itself was at risk. Morrison turned back to the viewport. Stars streaked past as they jumped between points, the silence of the Black Armada unbroken. If the Harari are concerned, he said quietly, then we're no longer just challenging the Zafrans or any other empire. We're entering the stage where we can be seen, or tested, by forces far beyond their understanding. In the Council, discussion of humanity's recent actions had already drawn attention from other empires. Subtle alliances shifted. Trade routes rerouted. Intelligence networks activated in ways they hadn't before. Humanity's presence, though minimal in visible engagement, had created ripples of uncertainty. Every species that had once assumed dominance over a sector now questioned their security. And the uncertainty, Morrison knew, was more powerful than fleets of warships. Back aboard the Black Armada, Morrison's crew worked in quiet coordination. Cloaked sensor arrays were deployed along critical hyperlanes, not to attack, but to observe. Automated probes sent coded transmissions back to the fleet, creating a lattice of intelligence that stretched across light years. Every move by a potential adversary was noted, every anomaly catalogued. Humanity's strategy was no longer reactive, it was preemptive. And yet, Morrison could feel it, the shadow of something larger than any council, any fleet, any empire. The Harari signals were faint, almost imperceptible, but they carried a warning embedded in their pattern: prepare. Days turned into weeks. The Zafrans, having retreated, attempted to consolidate power among their allies, but hesitation and fear had taken root. Factions debated the reliability of their intelligence. No fleet dared probe deep into human space again without careful calculation. And all the while, Morrison's fleet remained poised, not aggressive, not visible, but always ready. Hannah Lee finally broke the silence one evening. "Captain, we've received an incoming transmission. It's encoded, unusual. Harari origin, but modified. Almost like a message within a message." Morrison studied the display. The Harari rarely communicated directly. When they did, it was always precise, deliberate, and fraught with significance. "Open it," he said. The transmission unfolded like a ripple through time and space. Words, shapes, and signals layered atop each other, impossible to decipher fully on first scan. Yet the meaning was clear in its essence: the architects are awake. They have observed. They will come. A cold weight settled over the bridge. The architects, the fabled creators of galactic scale structures, legends of unimaginable power, were not myths. They were a reality, and they had noticed humanity. Morrison's voice was calm, but the crew felt its gravity. "We've been preparing for the galaxy," he said. "Now, we must prepare for something beyond it. The humans' patience, our foresight, will be tested like never before." The crew understood immediately. Every calculation, every hidden maneuver, every subtle display of power was now secondary. Humanity had proven itself capable of strategy and patience, but the architects were something else entirely. Vast, incomprehensible, and indifferent. Yet Morrison's resolve never wavered. "We are not merely survivors," he said. "We are humans. And humans adapt." In the void, the Black Armada adjusted its formation, stretching sensors deeper, cloaking paths that might be anticipated, preparing contingencies for unknown variables. Humanity's influence had begun as subtle, its victories measured and surgical. Now, it faced a force that dwarfed all known power. And the galaxy, which had begun to whisper about the humans' uncanny efficiency, was about to witness an entirely new level of their resilience. The Harari, unseen but observing, would test, warn, and perhaps intervene. The architects, mysterious and limitless, would challenge the very notion of survival. And in the center of it all, humanity, quiet, patient, and relentless, prepared for the trials to come. Morrison looked out at the stars, unflinching. The humans had learned to bend perception, control engagements, and wield influence with precision. Soon, they would learn to face the unknown itself. The galaxy had only just realized the humans were no longer merely a faction among many. They were a force to be accounted for. And beyond the known reaches, in the dark expanses untouched by councils or fleets, the architects stirred. Humanity was ready.